All right, today we are going to be making shorts, and if you look at my pattern, you can see it's a bicycle pattern. It's definitely has a directional on it for pattern, so I have to make sure that I always have my top of my shorts at the top of the bicycles. So that's one thing I'm looking at. The other thing you want to make sure that you're looking at is the edge of the fabric that has been on the loom. It usually has some kind of writing on it. Might be some white strips along the edge, and you'll see a little bit of fringe here. That means that's the selvage. This is where there's no stretch this way. There'll be a little bit of stretch going the opposite way. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. Then the next thing I need is my pattern pieces. And this particular pattern is for longer shorts for a child. And you can see I have, I know it's pretty hard, but there are lots of lines on here, but I'm looking at the hem for the size 8, all right, because that's what I'm going to be making. And I'm going to fold my pattern up on that line. Just going to put a pin in so it's out of my way. So if you have a pattern that is a pair of pants and you need to make it shorts, this is what you're going to do. Lay that there. You should have a front and a back piece for pattern pieces. You're going to want to make sure you've got that before you start. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to lay it on my material. And I'm going to put a pin in right here and a pin in right here. Then the next thing we want to do is there's going to be a grain line on your pattern piece. You're going to want to make sure that that grain line is perfectly parallel with your selvage. So we have to measure from that grain line out. This one is 23 centimeters, and I just prefer to use centimeters. And right here it is 23 centimeters. So that's positive. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and pin this all down. And you want to make sure you have plenty of pins so there's no gapping when you're going to cut. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. Measure from the grain line out. Again, I want to use centimeters. It's 14.5 centimeters there, so it needs to be 14.5 centimeters here. Right? So I'm just going to move it a little bit so it becomes 14.5. If you don't do that, you're going to get done with this and your grain line is going to be off. And I know some of you have purchased pants or shorts and the seam kind of goes either towards the front of your leg or towards the back of your leg, and that's because they didn't cut it on the grain of the fabric. It'll has a tendency to pull, so we don't want that to happen. All right, so once we're done with that, I'm going to cut around on this solid line, and I'm going to go around my notches. So because this one is a 6, 7, 8, I'm just going to clip in a little bit because I need to tip this back to get the right size of the. And this is all going to be stitched at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So when you're sewing, that's what you're going to want to make sure you're stitching at. that's done. This piece is the back. So what I need to do now is I'm going to take my pins off of my back piece. And I don't have anything else to mark on this one, so that's positive. All right, and I'm going to mark the inside with chalk with beads. And chalk comes off, but it's a really nice way to mark it. So you don't have, when it's time to put it together, you can start putting it together the right way. So I'm going to put my right sides up of my back so the inseam is matching. And then I'm going to take this off. And these are I'm going to have 4 single pieces of fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my machine, and I'm going to show you what to do next. And I'm going to zigzag around each single piece of fabric. All right, so we are back and we're ready to zigzag. I'm changing my bottom knob to 2.5, my top knob to the largest C for zigzag. I'm going to put my presser foot on the edge, and I'm going to zigzag around all my pieces. When you get to a corner, make sure your needle's down, raise your presser foot, and turn. And then I backstitch the very end, trim my threads. Okay, and I'm going to do the other 3 pieces. And remember, you're doing them singly, and you're going to put your presser foot on the edge. All right, so you can see, I'm going to hold that right up there. You can see that I've zigzagged around all of my pieces at this point, and I'm going to make sure I've got the X's. It's not that one. There's one that has a B on it, and this one has a B on it. So I'm having it so these crotches, or these little short pieces, are going to match each other. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece right side up. And I know that I don't have an even length, and that's all right. We can fix that. That's easy enough. So sometimes when you alter patterns, it's not always perfect. And I'm going to pin this, and I'm going to pin it in the crotch area, and then I'm going to match my sides up here, and I want to match the top, not the bottom, because I know that I have to take and trim off one end. So and it looks like it's the front that's longer on this piece. And I didn't measure, probably should have, but I didn't. So you can see how much it's off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim that. Just like that. That one's ready to go. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to pin this one. Again, you match up the crotch and the curve. And the bottom. Then you're going to match the side up. So start from the top and make sure your edges are even. Put some pins in. because you don't want this to move on you when you're stitching. And again, I'm going to trim that up. All right. Now I'm going to take and turn my knob back to B because I'm going to do straight stitching now. So I'm going to stitch along this edge, the straight edge that I've pinned, and I'm going to do just the short edge, which is the inseam inside of your leg. And this is going to be again at 5/8 of an inch. And I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. I'm going to go over and do the outside edge, that side seam. Something's not right. Here. There we go. Yeah. Something's matter in the bobbin. I'm out. When you zigzag, it takes a lot of thread, so you want to make sure that you have your bobbin full while you're doing it. So while I fill the bobbin, we'll come right back. So again, we're going to line up this side seam, pin it, and we're going to straight stitch at 5/8 inch, back stitch beginning and end. Again, we're going to do this one where we're going to do the outside side seam, 5/8 of an inch, back stitch at the beginning. And the end. Then you want to go in and do the crotch seam here, that's in between your legs, your inseam, and these might not be very long, but we have to be long enough to get a hem. Okay, so now this is done. And now we're ready to do some pressing. So I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so I'm at the ironing board, and we are going to open this up so it lays flat, and I'm going to sew I'm going to press this inseam. Let's back this up a little bit. You can see it. I'm going to lay this flat so you can see it. Okay, and I'm going to press that so it lays really nice and flat. That's what I want it to do. Then I'm going to turn it over, and I want to open up this long seam that's the side seam as well. And I want that to be flat. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the crotch seam. Open it up, press it flat. Then go down the side seam and make sure that that's pressed really good so that's flat. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn one leg right side out. So my fabric is outside. I see the right side of the fabric. And I'm going to take the other one that's inside out, and I'm going to stick the one that's right side out into the one that's inside out. So I have the right side of my pieces of fabric together. And I need to pin it. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like. So what will happen at this point, your two fronts will be together and your two backs will be together, and you're doing the seam from the front of your belly button right up and down through your crotch and to up through your crack in the butt. That's the seam we're doing. Okay? So it starts to make some sense for you. And it's going to look like a U if you do it right. And I'm going to show you what it looks like here in a second, as soon as I get it pinned. It's really important to pin so everything doesn't move again. Like I said, we don't want that. So you can see the right sides of my fabric are together. You're looking at the wrong sides because I'm going to be stitching on the wrong side. And I want to stitch 5/8 of an inch down and around my curve and back up. And then I'm going to do it again at 4/8. So I'm going to have 2 rows of stitching, so I have double the security for when you're sitting down, standing up, doing jumping jacks, whatever you're going to do, you've got that double row of stitching where it counts. All right, so now we're going to go sew that. Okay, so again, I have my U. I'm going to stitch 5/8 and then 4/8 all the way around. And it's going to be straight stitched. And you're going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. When we practice those inner curves and outer curves, that's what this is all about. You want to make sure that these seams are flat when you go over them. Okay, so there's our 5/8 inch seam. And now we're going to come back and do our 4/8 inch seam. Okay, so that's all done. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the iron and we're going to prep the waistband. And the waistband is going to be just like we did on our samples where we turned it under 1/4 of an inch, pressed it all the way around, and then we're going to turn it 1 1/2 inches, and we're going to press it all the way around to sew. So I've turned it 1/4 of an inch and ironed all the way around. Now I'm going to get ready to iron it 1 1/2 inches, and I want to make sure that this is a true 1 1/2, and I want it to be even all the way around. So when I do that, I'm also going to put some pins in to hold it down so it doesn't pop on me. I don't like that when that happens, so I don't like it when it pops, like I said. It just makes your job a lot harder to go around if you don't take and make sure that's turned under and you've measured accurately. Your elastic is not going to go through if you don't do that. So make sure you're taking care of that. So I've got my pins in, and then I'm just going to make sure it's really nice and flat before I start. Again. Okay, so that's done. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to hem the bottom as well. I'm going to turn this 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to turn it 1 inch. All right, and that's not going to leave a whole lot. I might not even get 1 inch. We'll see here. No, I should. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I've got it all turned under 1/4 of an inch around the bottom of the leg. Now I'm going to do 1 inch. My measuring tool. And before I even press it, I am going to go in and pin it in place. I'm going to do the seams first, where I'm going to turn it on the seams. And then I go back in and just kind of flip it, and then I can move it back to where I need it to be. And then I'm going to be ready here to stitch here pretty darn quick. All right. So that's what it looks like right now, and I'm going to be stitching here on this very edge all the way around with my machine on the hem, all the way around with the machine on my hem, and then this is going to be just like this is the back, so that's where I'm going to start, on the very edge, around and stop, and in the center, around and stop. Alright, so when I'm going to be doing this in a circle, I want to make sure I take that arm of my machine off, and again, like I said, I'm going to start in the back, and these are both marked with the B. So I'm going to put these in. See where this is starting to pop out? We don't want that. So you got to get it back up underneath there. It's okay to stop it and maneuver it, is what I'm going to tell you. Otherwise you're going to have a mess. Again, I'm going to leave an opening because this is where our elastic's going to go in. I'm going to go back in and do it at, I'm going to do 6/8. So that's the last line. I'm going to stop there so there's an opening. Take it out, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the hem of my pants, and I like to start on the inside of the leg. All right, so you're going to finish going around in this circle. And again, you're sewing it not on the edge where it's off, you're sewing it on the other fold where you folded it. Okay, so you're going to continue going around in a circle. Crease there, I can see it. I don't like that. Pull that a little bit. Not a little bit. Okay, so that one's done. And then we're going to do the other one. Remember, you're taking your pins out as you go. Okay, so this is all done. And I'm going to trim up my threads, and then I'm ready to put my elastic in, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, elastic is in, but I am not going to completely finish it because I've got to fit it to the little girl that's going to wear it. But once I do that, I'll overlap my elastic, zigzag back and forth, or straight stitch, just like you did in your practice. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to straighten it on my machine and stitch from here to here and here to here and close that up. And this is what you're going to have. Cute little pair of shorts. Good luck.